Hello and welcome. You're watching NDTV. Time now for us to shift our focus back to the spread of the coronavirus. India on Saturday recorded 14,313 new COVID-19 cases, taking India's total tally to 3,42,60,000. This is all according to the data released by the Union Health Ministry. The active cases in India currently stand at 1,61,555. The daily rise in new COVID infections has been below the 30,000 mark for 36 straight days. Less than 50,000 daily new cases have been reported for 125 consecutive days now. The daily positivity rate, meanwhile, is 1.22%. It's been below the 2% mark for 26 consecutive days. However, the active cases on Saturday saw an increase of 221, currently stands at 161,555, but they do remain below that 1% mark of the total caseload and have been at the lowest mark since March 2020. So, does this mean the worst is over? Does this mean we can return to life as we remembered it? And what do we need to know to protect ourselves and our loved ones right now? Joining us now is the Dr. Guleria of the All India Institute of Medical Sciences. Dr. Guleria, as usual, thank you for your time. It is irreplaceable. First and foremost, we've just read out those numbers. Is the worst over, Dr. Guleria? Because, you know, in today's world, especially in today's India, even numbers can be read in many different ways. Facts no longer seem to be facts somehow, because I've also read the same numbers. There are some reports, people are saying India has recorded more than 14,300 cases in the last 24 hours. That the recoveries have been less than the new cases. This is the second consecutive day that the number of recoveries in the country has been less than the number of new cases. And if this persists over the next couple of weeks, then it could indicate a new wave of the pandemic. I mean, still too premature. So my question to you is, how do you read the numbers that are coming out of the government? How should we read the numbers? Half full, positive, negative, time to go back to normal or not?
So I would say the numbers are encouraging because it suggests that we have reached a sort of a plateau, or there is a gradual decline in the number of cases. But at the same time, it's important to remember that the virus is still around. It's not gone away. We are still seeing significant number of cases varying from around 15 to 20,000, and that can change depending upon how the virus behaves and how we behave in terms of COVID appropriate behavior. And what we're seeing globally is actually more of a cause of concern, because we're seeing a huge surge in number of cases and deaths in Russia. China is also reporting new cases. We're seeing a surge in cases in Europe also. And therefore, we need to really keep in mind that globally the pandemic is not over and the virus is evolving, it is changing, and therefore we are in a good position, but we need to work to sustain this good position by maintaining COVID appropriate behavior, by being careful, by having good aggressive surveillance, not letting our guards down in terms of testing, and aggressively pushing for vaccination.
And is that why the government has, in view of the current pandemic situation, along with the ongoing festive season, the Union Ministry of Home Affairs on Thursday extended the existing COVID-19 restrictions till the 30th of November. First, they were only on till October 31st. So, despite the rosy picture, the numbers, they have extended restrictions. Is that why you think?
Yes, I think that is the main reason, because of two things. One is the global scenario, and the fact that we are now in a festive season where there is a very high chance of COVID appropriate behavior not being followed. As a matter of fact, you just have to go outside and you'll see that people have stopped wearing masks. There is huge crowds, and if you talk to people, many of them would tell you that, you know, there's no need to wear masks because COVID is now not there, it's gone. But I would just remind everyone that we were in a similar situation between the first and second wave. And then the virus changed, it became more infectious, and we had a huge surge in the number of cases. So it's always better to be a little cautious, careful. Hopefully things will be better because now a large number of people have been vaccinated. The Sero survey data also suggests that many individuals have acquired immunity, and therefore there is good amount of protection. But still, I think it's not time to let our guards down, especially during the festive season.
So, Dr. Guleria, I'm sure you also must be going out somewhere, sometime. We're all human, even doctors like you need a break. So, what do you do in your own personal capacity when you go out? How do you pick and choose where to go? When you go, what do you do with your family, if they're accompanying you, your kids, etc.?
So I think 2 or 3 things are important. One, of course, that you should not let your mask down. You should wear a mask which covers your nose and mouth, and no matter where you are, indoor or outdoor, try and keep your mask on as much as possible. Wash your hands regularly, especially if you're touching surfaces you're not sure whether they are clean or not. And secondly, try and see that your movement is in places where you feel that it's not going to be that crowded, and if it's not that essential, one could try and avoid going out. If you're outdoors, it's still a better thing because an outdoor environment is still better in terms of infection control, but indoor environment, especially where ventilation is poor, can lead to a super spreading event if someone is infected there and there is a lot of crowding, no one is wearing masks, and cross ventilation is not good.
All right, I want to move across to the big story of the last 24 hours actually. In a new pandemic milestone, the United States cleared the Pfizer shot for children aged 5 to 11. The US FDA only on Friday authorized Pfizer's coronavirus vaccine. This will make it the first shot for young children in the US. Now there were lots of high-level medical panel meetings, etc., advising the government. They finally endorsed the shots, ruling that the known benefits outweighed the risks of the side effects. What does that mean, Dr. Guleria? When you hear as a parent, I want to hear my doctor just say emphatically, yes, do it. I don't want to hear the known benefits outweigh the risks of side effects. What would you say as a doctor to parents?
So firstly, I think it's important to understand that no vaccine we don't have any vaccine which doesn't have side effects. Parents still give vaccine to their children, and there is a huge vaccination program, immunization program, where so many vaccines are given. All of them can have some degree of side effects. In 99% of people, it's very minor side effects in the form of fever, body aches, which go away on their own. There is a small percentage of people who may have some serious side effects. That is the risk-benefit analysis, that if you look at it in terms of a community, the benefits are much more to society and to everyone as compared to the risk. The other important thing about the COVID vaccines are that all of the safety data is only for a short duration, for 2 to 3 months. We don't have a long-term data because the vaccines have come in only recently. And for adults, that data is now there that it's safe for, let's say, 8 to 10 months or 12 months. But for children, we don't know, and children are growing, they have other issues, therefore, long-term safety data will evolve over a period of time. But currently, looking at the scenario, the risk-benefit analysis would suggest that it's better to take the vaccine right now. The side effects and the risks are small, but they're not zero.
And also beyond protecting children's own health, I'm guessing epidemiologists think that vaccinating children will bring an end to disruptions of school and other activities. But Doctor, the US is following only a handful of other countries, including China, Chile, Cuba, and the UAE, that are inoculating younger children with various vaccines. What should Indian parents be thinking? We hear of, cousins, relatives, etc., living abroad whose kids are getting vaccinated, and we're wondering, what about our kids?
So I think for India also the vaccination for kids would be rolled out. The reason why other countries have not done it are basically 2 or 3. One is, of course, whatever data we have suggests the children still have a mild infection, and therefore the chance of the vaccine protecting them from severe disease or death is not that important because they have a mild infection. Whereas we have still a significant number of people who may be in the younger age group or the older age group who have comorbidities and a higher chance of having more severe infection or dying because of COVID-19. Therefore, we should roll out the vaccination in children. But again, I think we need to prioritize it, that first we should vaccinate those children who have a higher chance of dying due to severe COVID or having severe COVID infection. And for that, we need to look at children who have comorbidities, who are on drugs which decrease their immunity and therefore they could get severe disease. Once we've done that, then we should roll it out to healthy children, because they may have a mild disease, but they can also spread the infection to others. Children may get the infection in school. they may take it home and then give it to their elders and thereby cause them to have a severe infection. So if we really want to break the chain of transmission, bring down the cases in the community, vaccinating children would be important. But the first aim is to save lives, decrease hospitalization, then break the chain of transmission.
All right, we have to go in for a short break, but after that I want to talk to you about the other worry. COVID-19 restrictions in West Bengal extended till the 30th of November because of rising cases of the AY4.2 variant. After the break, we'll ask Dr. Guleria, what is this now? Stay tuned. Welcome back. From Karnataka to West Bengal, now concerns about a new sub-lineage of the coronavirus AY4.2 classified as a rising variant. Dr. Guleria, how concerned should we be? What do we know about this subvariant?
So this variant AY4.2 is a variant which is from the Delta Plus lineage, and it has been seen by the INSACOG also, the genome sequencing group in India. I think less than 20 cases, around 17 cases confirmed cases have been reported. Now this variant has also been reported in other countries including the UK, where they have some data which suggests that this variant may be even more infectious than the Delta variant that we have. However, the data in terms of its being more lethal, causing more hospitalization, causing more death is not there. The variant probably is to some extent a little bit more infectious. If you look at data from our own country where this variant has been found, we are not seeing a very dramatic increase in the number of cases there. The number of cases there has been a surge, but not to the extent that one would really get very concerned about, and therefore this is a variant of interest, hasn't really become a variant of concern. But I think we still need to be very cautious, because as new variants evolve, sublineages evolve, they may develop what we call an immune escape mechanism and decrease the efficacy of the vaccination, and you may start getting number of breakthrough infections. Currently, if you look at the situation in our country, we are not seeing an increase in hospitalization in areas where this lineage is being reported. A huge surge in number of cases is not being seen. Therefore, I think we need to be very cautious, monitor it closely, have very aggressive surveillance. But currently, I won't say that this is a great cause of concern as of now.
Good. I'm so glad to hear. But you know, interestingly, that West Bengal government order on this topic, and not just West Bengal, Doctor, we've seen this in the national lockdown and elsewhere. It said no outdoor activities, all outdoor activities to remain prohibited between 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. I mean, is this counterproductive? The fact that I know you've said that if you have to choose to go out, better to do something outdoors, go to a park, walk. But our governments across the board, states and national, seem to have been saying no parks, parks have been closed, etc.
So I don't think this is going to be very useful, because if you say you have no activity from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m., it's not that it's a nocturnal virus. The virus is still there during the day. So you will still have spread of infection if people continue to crowd during the day, don't have COVID appropriate behavior. So if you really have to have aggressive measures, then making sure that COVID appropriate behavior 24/7 is followed, rather than doing it only in the night and allowing everything to happen during the day. So it doesn't really seem to make much sense, because the virus doesn't decide that it's a day virus or it's a night virus. It's going to cause infection throughout.
All right, I want to go across to the other big story of the week. No nod for Covaxin yet, because the WHO is seeking additional clarifications. Their technical advisory group is now going to meet on Wednesday for what they're calling is a final risk-benefit assessment of Covaxin, India's indigenously made vaccine. Your thoughts on this? Are you expecting it anytime soon?
I think so. I think now there is a lot of data, not only from the industry, but also by individual researchers, which suggests two things. One is, of course, that the vaccine is safe, because now so many people have got it and it's been shown that the side effects or in terms of safety, there are no issues as far as side effects or safety is concerned. Secondly, whatever data that has been accumulated by scientists suggests that those who have been vaccinated are well protected, and the chance of severe infection, hospitalization and death is less. Therefore, I think there is data which is accumulated which shows that this vaccine is effective and safe. But obviously, the WHO has to go through its entire processes, And I'm very hopeful that by next week we should get the necessary approval, because a lot of people who want to travel are not being able to do so because this has not got the WHO approval.
All right, another short break we have to take, Doctor, but after that I want to talk to you about an important worry that again has arisen because of a death reported this week. Stay tuned. Welcome back. We're in conversation with Dr. Randeep Guleria. Dr. Guleria, the actor Puneeth Rajkumar's death once again seems to have put the spotlight on young India's weak hearts. India was left stunned after we reported that the Kannada actor Puneeth Rajkumar passed away. This was on Friday at the young age of 46. Authorities say that, the youngest son of the Kannada cinema legend Rajkumar, he passed away after suffering a heart attack. We seem to be hearing of more and more cases like this, Dr. Guleria. Siddharth Shukla, last year, the start of this pandemic, the wine pioneer of India, co-founder of Fratelli Wines, Kapil Sekhri, passed away at the age of 45, and all of them seem to be men. I'm sure you've thought about this. Your thoughts, and what should one make of this?
So very unfortunate, and this is something that is a cause of concern. We do know that a lot of non-communicable diseases, coronary heart diseases and others, tend to occur earlier in Asian population and Indians as compared to the Western population. Also, there has been a dramatic change in our lifestyle, and that has also affected the chances of having these diseases. So in terms of our diet, in terms of exercise, in terms of other risk factors, whether it be smoking or alcohol intake, all have added on to the higher chance of people developing non-communicable diseases at an early age. And therefore, I think it's important for us to really increase the awareness both in terms of preventive and promotive health. So how can we really make people, especially the younger generation, more conscious of trying to take steps to prevent diseases from happening by changing their lifestyle and being healthy, and also developing strategies for early evaluation or screening so that we can really pick up those who have a higher risk of developing heart problems and be able to treat them before a serious event like this happens.
And what about COVID-19 and the heart? I mean, is this now a new member joining the list, a long list of leading causes of heart attacks? Is it the coronavirus? Because you also hear of people who had recovered from COVID in the second wave, then heart attacks were being reported.
Yes, so COVID-19 also has a direct effect on the heart. In two ways, it affects the muscles of the heart, which we call myocarditis. That can happen. And we've had people who've suddenly have recovered from COVID and then suddenly crashed and had an acute heart attack. Secondly, we also know that COVID causes inflammation of the blood vessels, leading to high chance of clotting, what we call endothelitis. So in COVID, it can also cause clotting and or blockage of your coronary vessels, which the vessels which supply blood to the heart, and this also can lead to a heart attack. So there's much more, we need to be very cautious in those people who have recovered from COVID. They need to get their tests done to see that they don't have a cardiac problem. And once they start recovering, the return to activities has to be done in a very graded and slow manner. You come out of COVID, it's not that the next day you start going to a gym. Give yourself around 6 weeks to recover, take things lightly, and then gradually get your strength back and your activities back. That I think is very important. We've seen people who have been very aggressive in coming back to physical activities after recovering from COVID, having more problems than those who just gradually allowed their system to come back and recovered from COVID in a slow manner.
And checkups, constantly regular checkups are important. Thank you so much, Dr. Guleria, as usual, for your time. Have a great Diwali break. We'll see you on the other side. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Very happy Diwali to everyone.